All right, paying for DSTs and DFS seems to be a common topic, guys. Some people always go cheap, others believe in the value of a top end DST. So before we get into the specifics for week one, how do you guys each individually approach picking a DST on DraftKings? Stan, what's your strategy?
Yeah, I usually try to pay down that defense just because there's so much variance at the position. I'd rather use the savings on more projectable targets and touches. When I look for DSTs, I want a team that, applies pressure, also offenses that have lethal lines. Game environment is very important to me as well. I want a game that, is protected or could have a lot of back and forth, a lot of passing, so there's more opportunity for sacks and turnovers. That said, that doesn't mean I always pay down. If I have the salary, I have no problems paying up if all the boxes are checked. And also, sometimes it's a way to differentiate a lineup. So if everyone's paying down, you pay up. Your lineup is automatically going to be different from everyone else's.
AJ, how about you? How do you approach DSTs?
Yeah, I agree with Stan here. I don't think there's a one size fit all here. I think you have to consider the slate as well. Are you playing in something like the big week one main slate that we're going to see here? Are you doing a primetime slate where, with a Sunday night and Monday night game only? Generally I look to where I need to be in the rest of my lineup. For me, heading into week one, I think you have to consider getting Christian McCaffrey or Dalvin Cook in your lineup, and that's going to eat up a lot of salary. So I don't know that you can be at the top half of that defensive price range. So for me, there's a lot of factors that go into it. If you had to, if you want me to absolutely choose, I think I'm with Stan here. I tend to pay down a little bit more. I just don't think there's a one size fits all approach.
All right, guys, so let's get into the specifics. The 49ers open the season at the Detroit Lions, and that would be your top price DST at 4,200. AJ, you were just saying for that week one, you feel like you need to get some of the pricier guys like Christian McCaffrey in your lineup. So is that just too much to pay for a defense in week one of the season?
Absolutely. I mean, the size of the slate dictates that as well. You've got 13 games to pick from here in the main slate. That's just a multitude of options. And I just don't see the value in paying up all the way to the 49ers here. It's just too of a high of a price tag when you've got other things that you need to fit in here. Does that mean I think the 49ers aren't going to produce, as the DST here? I think they can. You got to look at the amount that you're getting for what you're paying, and I just don't see the value.
Stan, do you agree?
Yeah, I totally agree. In particular, the SFD, they're actually a better real life lead than a fantasy one. Last year they scored double-digit points 4 times, scored 5 or fewer points in 9 games. So, I mean, there's the variance right there. Detroit, they do have a really good O-line. San Francisco, 24th in adjusted sack rate last year. And, I think the big thing here, though, is if Detroit gets down, I don't see them letting Goff go nuts. I think they're just going to try to keep it on the ground and keep it close. So, yeah.
Okay, so the Patriots had some defensive struggles down the stretch last year, but with some post-COVID returns to their defense and the money spent in the offseason, there are higher hopes for that particular group this year, which is why they have the second priciest DST for the week for week one at 3,900. So Stan, do you like the Pats to be at home up against a Miami squad in the opener? They always seem
Yeah.
to have trouble with Miami.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. The two teams know each other very, very well. A lot of the games are kind of, grinded out, more field position battles. The New England D is much improved this year, but the Miami O is also much improved as well. So, yeah, I just don't see too much, fantasy goodies just because I don't think the offense is opening up.
AJ, you in agreement?
Absolutely here. And for me, again, it comes down to the amount of value that you can get. Do I think the Patriots have a somewhat easier matchup here? Sure. Do the Dolphins maybe have a bit of a questionable offense in my opinion? Yeah, I think so. But again, to pay up all the way to 3,900 for the Pats D, I just don't think it's viable in the slate for the main contest.
All right, so guys, the Carolina Panthers were the first team to take a defensive player in the 2021 draft when they picked South Carolina cornerback J.C. Horn. Now the Panthers are looking for a more consistent defensive effort this season, and they're starting that process against the Jets in week one. AJ, they're going to cost you 3,600. Do you like that price, or again, are you just not seeing the value?
Well, we're definitely getting closer, but I think I'm still going to back away from this one, despite those additions of Reddick, Perryman, Horn. Like, I'm not totally sold on this D. There's a lot of turnover going on there. I think it's going to take a little bit of time to make them be a truly cohesive unit. Let's not forget we've got one less preseason game for these guys to get opportunities here. Ask me this question again around week 5, week 7. It might be slightly different, but I'm not sold on the Panthers for day one here. And so that price tag is just still a little too high for me.
Little too high for you, Stan?
Yeah, I feel bad. I feel like such a hater this morning, but I mean, like AJ saying, the price is just way too much. They did make some good additions, but they were 21st in the adjusted sack rate last year. Maybe there's some improvement, but that still puts them in the middle of the pack. I think, the Jets, there's a lot of turnover there as well, but I do really respect Robert Saleh. He brought over his coordinator in San Francisco. So I think the offense is going to be predicated more on play action, bootleg, short passes. The opportunities to get sacks and interceptions, I think, are going to be limited. So I just think there's just going to be too many other cheaper defenses that'll be more appealing.
All right, Slate Approved Pick Time, guys. Stan, what's your favorite DST play for week 1? And I'm guessing it's going to be on the cheaper side.
Yeah, well, actually, I have two options here. So, if I'm paying down, I'm going all the way down to Atlanta. The game has a really high chance to go back and forth, high scoring, plenty of passing attempts. Jalen Hurts for Philadelphia, he's prone to getting sacked as he runs around and throws some interceptions. They did not score they only scored double-digit points in fantasy points one time last year, but that one time was a whopping 28 points. So there's definitely ceiling here. They're at home. They're the stone minimum, and I think the big addition is their new defensive coordinator, Dean Pease. He was with the Ravens and the Patriots in the past. He has Super Bowl experience, but I think more importantly, like he's known for his elaborate schemes to confuse quarterbacks, dial up pressure. So I think those two things combined together are kind of juicy. If I'm paying up, so I'm going to go with Minnesota against Cincinnati. I think the Vikings D is going to be very much improved this year. They've acquired some talent. Also, Zimmer intimated that he's made some tweaks to the scheme. But for me, it's all about the Cincinnati offensive line. It looks to be really bad. I think the Minnesota D can feast on that.
AJ, you paying all the way down for DST in week 1?
Pretty low here. I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills at 2,500. I think it saves you a ton of money for starters compared to the top of the group. Looking strictly at odds, Buffalo's favored by 6.5 points here. They added some pass rushers in the draft, and they're going to be able to go after the not exactly mobile Ben Roethlisberger here. And I think if Josh Allen can maybe get them out to an early lead, it's going to force the Steelers to throw the ball even more, and that plays into the Bills' strength. They've got a really solid secondary, 15 interceptions last year, and I think they're well suited to potentially pick a couple off here and maybe get one back to the house here.